North Carolina Democratic Governor Roy Cooper has vetoed a 12-week abortion ban passed by his state's Republican-controlled legislature. But despite Cooper signing the veto Saturday, the GOP-controlled state House and Senate, which both hold a supermajority, are expected to override that veto, making the ban into state law. And Democratic Governor Roy Cooper joins us now for more on this. Governor, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Let's talk about this veto threat or overriding the veto. Does the Republican Party have enough votes now to override your veto? Are you expecting that?
Well, right now they have a supermajority Republican Senate and a supermajority Republican House, but only by one vote in each chamber. That means I only need one Republican to step up and have the courage to do the right thing to sustain this veto. And make no mistake about it, a vote to override my veto is a vote to ban abortions. This legislation makes it so much harder for women to be able to access reproductive care, particularly those women who are poor, who have to travel a ways to get there, with all of the obstacles that they have put in the way of women, with the obstacles that they are putting in the way of these clinics. This is an effective ban on abortion for many women. And I'm hoping we can get one Republican to keep a campaign promise. There are at least 4 of them who said they would protect women's reproductive freedom. And it's time for them to do what they told their constituents they were going to do.
So what have you been doing behind the scenes to try to convince them not to go through with this? And is there anything that you'd be willing to negotiate to change this bill so that they could support something you support? Are there any limits you would support?
So what they have done is they've made an extreme move here to ban abortions in North Carolina. They have no intention of negotiating with us. They did this in secret. They would not allow any Democratic amendments. They kept this under lock and key until they rolled it out, and they passed it in 42 hours. What we're trying to do now is to educate the public on what this legislation actually does. And we're hoping that someone who knows these Republicans, one of their constituents, maybe it's a doctor, maybe it's a minister, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's someone that they trust, would lay this out for the legislators and say, look, you promised to us that you would protect women's reproductive freedom. And if you vote to override this veto, what you're doing is banning abortions for many women.
So you're hoping that the public pressure campaign is the motivating factor here. But, you know, this bill, compared to others that have been passed in neighboring states, isn't as restrictive. It's about 12 weeks. It does include some exceptions as well. So how, you know, is there a middle ground that you can find here?
That's what North Carolina Republicans want you to think, that this is less restrictive than other states, when in actuality, they've dressed this up as a reasonable 12-week ban. But what they've done is made it so much harder for women to be able to access abortion at any time during the process, requiring 3 in-person appointments, cutting off medication abortion at 10 weeks. Those are the kinds of things that they have done to make this an extreme piece of legislation, not a whole lot different from what they're doing in other states. They just tried to dress this up and make it look better. Democrats in North Carolina have come together, and what we want to do is codify Roe v. Wade. Every single Democrat in our state introduced and co-sponsored legislation that would codify Roe v. Wade. And what we get from this legislature is this extreme ban. All we need is one Republican to step up and say, that's not right, to go to the Republican leadership and say, we need to stop this. And we're hoping that this education of the public will result in not only people telling legislators what they believe that should happen here, but also I think it's going to educate some of the Republican legislators. They kept this thing so tight that many of the Republican legislators couldn't answer questions on the floor and really didn't know what they were voting on. Now that we know what a horrible bill this is, now that we know what a disaster this is for North Carolina, now that we know that this legislation is going to hurt women across North Carolina, it's time to say, wait a minute, we don't need to do this.
Governor, if they do end up being able to override your veto, is there anything that you can do unilaterally on the issue of abortion?
We will never stop fighting to protect women's health. Never, 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 ever stop fighting to protect the health of women here.
What does that look
Already,
like?
through executive action, I have worked to try and make this easier, make this process better for North Carolina. And I'll look at all ways that I can use executive authority. We would work through the courts. We will never stop fighting here.
And Governor, the reason that you and Democrats are in this position is because a Democratic member of the legislature, Trisha Cotham, switched parties to the Republican Party. What does that say about the Democratic Party that you had a lawmaker leave and switch, and you are in this position now? And have you spoken with her?
Certainly, I've spoken with her quite a bit. And what I have asked her to do is to keep the promises that she has made to her constituents. She has been a strong protector of women's reproductive rights over the years. She made a statement about wanting to have freedom of thought as one of her reasons why she wanted to switch from the Democratic to the Republican Party. I would ask her to use that freedom of thought right now. I would ask her to stand up to her new party, just like she did her old party, particularly when it comes to protecting women's health. That's something that's been very important to her, something that she has continued to tell her constituents that she would protect. Now is the time for her to show it. I mean, she can create a legacy in this state by stopping this, because all we need is one Republican.
All right, well, we will keep an eye on what happens in the legislature in the coming days. And of course, North Carolina, big battleground state in the next presidential election as well. Governor Cooper, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks so much.